Welcome back. In this episode we'll continue our journey north. But first of all, we'd spent the night just short of the Audlem flight of 11 locks, so that was our first challenge for the day. After breakfast we'd planned to push on north through Northwich and finishing the day on the Middlewich branch, which was around about 13 miles away. Having already done 11 locks down the Audlem flight, it still only left us about 7 for the rest of the day. They'd been doing quite a bit of work at the Moss Hall Aqueduct where we stopped for breakfast, and it was nice to see the upgrades. You get a fantastic view of the scenery from upon this big embankment. About an hour later we approached the locks at Hack Green. There was quite a queue of boats here because a boat had lost its prop in the lock itself and it was now under tow. As if their day couldn't get any worse, just as they were about to pass us, they managed to run aground despite being quite a long way from the bank, and both boats got stuck fast. All the boaters assembled, rallied around, we got a rope to the shore, we were able to help pull the boat off, and eventually, after quite a lot of pulling around with ropes and pushing with poles, we were able to get both boats off and on their way. Whilst it took us about an hour and a half to clear the line of queued boats waiting to go down the lock, I have to be honest, I quite enjoy this. It's quite relaxing and you get to talk to people, so it was no real problem to us. After the locks, the canal remains a very, very straight and flat area. But there were still interesting things to see, like this heron who seemed very, very unbothered by us passing. As you reach Northwich, the canal rises up onto an embankment as it goes through the town itself. It's quite busy here, there's lots of boats moored, and there were quite a few boats on the move. Because you're on an embankment, actually it's also quite windy, so that balance between going nice and slowly and not sliding into people was a little bit challenging. Just before you reach the main facilities in Northwich, you cross over this aqueduct over a busy road. It's a fascinating juxtaposition between the relaxing canal life and the busy street life below. We tied up just before the facilities point on this nice stretch of moorings We had a few jobs to do in town. We had some letters to post and a little bit of shopping to do, so we pulled over and went off for a bit of a stroll and explore. With our chores done, we stopped for a bit of a lunch before pressing on again. The clouds were darkening and I had this inkling that it might very well rain in the afternoon, so we wanted to press on a little bit and get to somewhere which would be good to moor for the night. Northwich is a busy town for boaters with marina and facilities. Really great place to stop for a bit, and so I was really glad that we got to pull over and have a bit of an explore. About 45 minutes after leaving Northwich, we passed the turn-off here on the left, which takes you down the Llangollen Canal in the direction of Trefor and Llangollen. It's quite impressive as well. The bank here on the right is the edge of the Hurdleston Reservoir. Quite impressive to think all that water is held up quite high above the canal here. At Burbridge, the canal becomes a bit more residential again as you enter the village, and it's not far past this point when we turn onto the Middlewich Canal, so we were looking out for that turn off and the facilities point that was just before it. We all know boaters are a very friendly lot, but the skipper of this boat felt the need to stand to attention and salute as we went by. It later transpired that he knew the previous owner, who was in fact in the army. The turn itself is one of those lovely blind bends, and with a strong crosswind, I just hoped we didn't meet a boat coming the other way. Fortunately we didn't, and we got round unscathed. The next morning we awoke and it was raining again, so there was nothing for it but to stop and have a nice fry up before we got going for the day. Before we left, I had a little look around at the area we'd moored up overnight. It was quite secluded, a little area with picnic benches and barbecues. Really nice little spot to spend the night. So we woke up this morning to very leaden skies out here, a lot of rain coming down. So we've just left the mooring. It's actually stopped raining for a bit now. So we're heading towards Middlewich on the Middlewich branch of the Shropshire Union Canal. We started the day planning to cruise in the direction of Northwich. We needed a few supplies and we thought there might be a good place. From there we planned to turn south and head towards the Rookery moorings. That would mean today would be about 25 miles long, so a reasonable day with 16 locks between here and where we plan to spend the night. We passed Aqueduct Marina, seen here on the right, and there was a film crew busying themselves away. Didn't see a GoPro in sight though. The Middlewich branch is a small canal that joins the main Staffordshire and the Trent and Mersey canals, and you really get the sense that you're travelling down a little B road. It's very enclosed, quite beautiful. When we arrived at Middlewich, we noticed these lovely blackberry bushes lining the canal here, so we couldn't resist but to collect a few for later on. After a spot of lunch, we got underway again, heading towards the junction of the Trent and Mersey Canal. It's one of those tight turns as you exit the bridge and join the Trent and Mersey Canal. A few years ago we'd actually spent about 2 hours in a boat queue here waiting to get round this corner, but no such difficulties today. Absolutely nobody was around. I can't blame them because the weather was still quite bleak. Having spent the last few days descending through locks on the canal, as you leave Middlewich you're aware the canal starts to rise again. Here the locks are quite deep, they're quite powerful on the gates, so you have to be quite careful. There's often 2 locks side by side as well, which underlines the amount of traffic that would have gone up through the Trent and Mersey in the day. We really wanted to clear the urban environment before we moored up for the night, so we headed for the unofficial rookery moorings. The book said that they were ringless here and it was quite a good place to stop.
While Carl secured the boat, I set about making the apple and blackberry crumble. As the crumble is for 2, I measured out 4 ounces of flour and 2 ounces of butter. I cut the butter up into cubes to make it easier to rub into the flour to make the breadcrumb-like consistency. Next, I add the sugar. Traditionally, you add the same amount of sugar as butter, but I normally only add half that amount and it still tastes great. I mix the sugar into the flour and butter, and that is the topping ready. Next, I put the apples and blackberry into a saucepan and stir it over a low heat until the excess liquid is drawn out of the fruit and I can pour it away. I then greased an oven-proof dish and spooned in the fruit before adding the topping and levelling it off. I placed the dish in a preheated oven at gas mark 5 for about 25 to 30 minutes. You know when it's ready as the topping goes a lovely golden brown. We like ours with cream, but custard or ice cream are also popular choices as an accompaniment.
Well, that's about all we've got time for this episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. Next time we'll be heading up through all the locks of Heartbreak Hill and going deep underground through the Hare Castle Tunnel. Until then, thank you for watching.